here we are in Tiwanaku, and we're looking at the temples and the remains of the temples here, and it's like, there can be some confusion here because there is a lot of rebuild that was done in modern era by archaeologists, and so, there's a lot of interpretation of what was here and what it looked like. And certainly the interpretation comes from our level of technology. So let's take a look at that a little bit. So these are originals, right? Can you? These are originals. You might lose your hat looking at them because they're big, right? And then this is reconstruction. Now, guess what? In modern era, when we reconstruct these monolithic temples, we use small, uniform rectangular block that we can handle, right? We don't reconstruct with this kind of stuff. Why? Because we can't do it, right? We don't do that stuff in modern era. And then the base is still in, so that the base stones are original, this stuff is original, and it's big. Let's take a look, let's go down. Now we can see the joint on the base stone are perfect, right? Clearly these joints are modern era joints, and they're pretty damn good for modern era, but they're nothing close to what you see on the base stone. And you can see that they match, right? Perfectly, right? The original stones, right? And look at so it's very, very eroded on the bottom, but it's still really good. Look at this size. These are about 40 ton, 30, 40 ton, maybe 50 ton boulders, right? Look at the match for this to stay up on these smaller stones. It's remarkable. Look at the match here on the perfect, it's like fused, right? But seriously eroded. Seriously eroded. And there's articles that are emerging right now from the scientific community that's been looking at the erosion, that's been looking at the alignments of these stones, that's been looking at this the archaeological evidence that are saying these things are at least 14 to 15,000 BC, 17,000 years old, right? Nothing to do with the Inca culture, like pre-cataclysmic, pre-last ice age by a long shot. Remarkable. Remarkable and clearly different than modern construction building. And so, and again, this is a modern interpretation of what was there between the rocks. It might have looked vastly different, including that some 70 to 95% of the buildings are still under the ground, and that's been confirmed by ground penetrating radar. So there's a lot more under the ground, and the soil level on the inside of the temple is much higher than down here. So there might have been a lot of settling of material that has brought the ground level up inside the temple for thousands and thousands of years. It's very remarkable architecture, remarkable history, a history that has been lost to humanity that finally is re-emerging, clearly showing very similar methods of constructions around the world with megalithic stones, vastly more antiquity than what we previously associated them with, and certainly not from people going at it with chisels and hammer. So that's part of Tiwanaku. There's much more. There's much more over here if we, and it's all over the place here. We have these amazing stones that look like mold stones, right? Stones that seem to have been part of a very complex structure with very, very precise cuts and super smooth surfaces, and then all kinds of variety of stones as well. All kinds of different kinds of stones, from limestone to granite. And you see these amazing surfaces, these amazing shapes, these amazing corners that are made, like stuff that you would expect would be made with modern CNC cutting, with very high precision, you know, diamond blades cutting stones. You know, certainly not stuff you expect from, you know, 15,000 BC, unless you have a very advanced civilization doing it. And you know, when you touch the surface of these stones, it's so smooth, it's so perfect, and it almost feels like polished cement. And that's my point that I've been making all the way through this. It's almost like these stones were in a fluid state when they were manufactured, like in a cold plasma state when they were manufactured. And you know, although that might sound really outrageous, you know, it's one of the only things you can come up with to explain the way the joints were made, the way the cuts are made in them, the smoothness of them. And this is all broken up and tumbled, but the evidence is still very much present, you know, with incredible surfaces, with stones that have been eroding for thousands and thousands of years, still beautiful, still incredibly consistent across many stones. And if it was just a few, that'd be one thing, but when you have thousands and thousands of these stones everywhere, all manufactured in a very strange way, then and again, there's only 5% that's above the ground. Imagine what's under the ground. You get these structures, look at these structures over there, right? Very strange, very complex structure. And so that's Tiwanaku. And we're here with the Resident Science Foundation looking at the evidence, and the evidence is overwhelming. There was very advanced, very high culture civilization that was present, most likely pre-cataclysmic, pre-last ice age, and we're looking at the vestiges of it. And you know, the later civilizations like Inca and Maya and so on, all over the Americas, including, you know, Africa, Egypt, and all this stuff, most likely is the same remains of the same cultures across the world. And the later cultures like dynastic Egypt and the Incas and so on, the Mayans, just came across these sites, knew that they were important sites, and then established their culture amongst those sites and their religious beliefs. So that's us.
You see a lot of similarities between this site and Egypt?
It's overwhelming. Like, so much similarities all across South America between these megalithic sites and Egypt. We saw some scooping marks over there, very typical of the scooping marks you find around the broken obelisk in Aswan in the quarries. Like, all along around the obelisk, you can see these huge scoops, like the stone was soft and scooped out. We saw just the same thing over here. I mean, like, it cannot be coincidence that these things are found. Very similar construction methods, very similar evidence, like, of, you know, precision and so on across the world from each other, can only come from one very advanced culture that used to be able to go around the globe. And so they were capable of traveling, they were capable of lifting extremely large objects, they were capable of assembling these objects in very precise way, with very precise alignment to star system and so on. And, you know, for most likely very powerful and very advanced energy production and food production and structuring of water and so on. So, I mean, you know, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what remains from that very ancient culture that was most likely extremely advanced. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll do some more as we advance into our last days in Peru and Bolivia.
Say hi, everybody, to your friends on Facebook. Much love, everybody. We'll see you in a minute.